of Centuro Global's just engagement strategy, getting our members, getting our partners beyond ourselves to share knowledge, to grow the network, to meet people. And we're super excited about today. We have great speakers lined up. We only put one of them on the advert for this, and yet we're actually going to surprise you and add a whole lot of others into it as well. I'm not going to speak too much, thankfully, because why take up all the space when you have amazing speakers already? So just for, as I see, there's quite a few people that aren't that are maybe not regular to me. I just want to very briefly tell you, Centuro Global, we're a services business that focuses on helping businesses scale globally into new regions with immigration, tax and accounting, company setup, legal, IP law, contractual law, and obviously business insurance and risk management as well. And that's really where we focused. I'm very proud, and I won't delay any further, to introduce our guest speaker for today. That is Brooke Hunter. She's the president of Hunter International Insurance, and she's the current board member of UNIBA Partners. And she will explain a bit more about who UNIBA are. But UNIBA, just from our side, as from Centuro side, they're one of our really special partners and members of our beautiful community that's growing more and more into many countries with great service providers. So Brooke, thank you for making time early in Canada for us to chat to us, and I'm going to just hand it straight over to you and allow you to take over. Let me know if you need anything from me.
Suraj, thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, and in some cases I suspect good evening. I am now going to share my screen, which
will run smoothly. I'm positive of it.
Right. How have I done so far?
That is it. It's there. It is. I think your screen still needs to be made onto presentation mode, because we're seeing the
see that, and I'm trying
and down in the bottom right hand corner is the usual kind of button to make it full presentation mode. There we go.
There we go.
Perfect. So and then what I will try and do, Brooke, is there's a way that I can spotlight you, and let's see if that helps. Let me just see if that spotlights you as well, and it makes you a little bit bigger than everyone else and your presentation. So that is really now handed over to you. I will manage the waiting room, let people in. And please, if you do have questions for Brooke and for the other speakers that I'll introduce a little bit later, feel free to put your questions in the chat. Remember to introduce yourself in the chat, tell us where you're from and which country and which company, and we're happy to meet everyone. But Brooke, over to you.
Okay, so today we're here to talk about insurance advisory as competitive advantage. And today I hope to express to Centuro Global members how they can lever UNIBA Partners for successful global expansion and scale. Let's step back for a moment though. What exactly is an insurance broker? Well, to start with, let me say that an insurance broker is not an insurance company. As insurance brokers, we're specialists in risk management for our clients' businesses and assets. Advice first. We work with multiple insurance companies to craft the best value insurances for our clients. We do not work for the insurance company. We advise and advocate on behalf of our clients. Now, UNIBA Partners. UNIBA Partners is the client-centric insurance broker network. And we are 70 plus brokerage partners in 130 countries. We carry approximately 4 billion euros in premium, and 100% of the brokerages are owner-led, like mine, Hunters International Insurance, operating out of Toronto, Canada. And I have the privilege of being on the board of UNIBA representing North America. So now how? Back to the point here. Exactly how can Centuro Global members lever UNIBA Partners? using insurance advisory as competitive advantage. Today, I will present 6 ways with a mini case study for each. Now, because I am North American and speaking from my experience, you'll see North American locations throughout this presentation, but you can quite literally insert any nation into my case studies to illuminate the same competitive advantage. Let's start with the first one, where a company is chosen to expand into a new country through acquisition. In this case, through acquisition due diligence, a UNIBA partner can be part of the due diligence team. Our work regularly has us in data rooms analyzing insurance policies in force, adequacy, and contractual compliance. To give you a flavor of the findings that we're looking for, perhaps chronic claims performance issues that could affect future insurance costs, or perhaps gaps in coverage that could create future surprises. There could be compliance issues with insurance statutes, if any, and sometimes there are special mechanics necessary for closing. And this could include arrangement of, in certain countries, representations and warranties in those countries where transactional insurance is becoming the norm. So let's look at a case study where we've got a UNIBA partner in the data room and the kind of value, and this is before any insurance is even placed. This is pure advisory. So in this case study, we've got a Canadian client pursuing an acquisition in Michigan in the United States. The client is looking to expand their funeral home and cemetery business into the States through acquisition. And by allowing us and our American UNIBA partner access to the data room, we uncovered some material issues. There was a gap in E&O coverage. That's professional liability. And it was from an historical change in the terms of coverage. For the insurance techies in here, claims made to occurrence left a gap. For the rest of us, or the rest of you that are not insurance specialists, it's a gap and it's material. And it's only through analyzing those policies that we found it, and we were able to give the heads up to the acquirer. There was a chronically severe claims experience for workers' compensation insurance. And that spoke to underlying management issues to price within the deal itself, and materially revised cost projections for the largest insurance cost they had. And finally, in the States, it's a normal requirement for many industries to have commercial surety bonds in each state within which they operate. In this particular case, they were operating in 4 states beyond Michigan. And so the USA commercial surety bonds were required in each state. Through this due diligence process, we were able to uncover that these were in fact in place, but that a replacement facility based on the acquirer's balance sheet would need to be in place for closing. So that gives you a flavor of the value that a UNIBA partner can add within the acquisition due diligence expansion phase. And again, at this point, we haven't placed any insurance. This is just pure advice. Now, let's have a look at greenfield due diligence, starting from scratch in a new country. A UNIBA partner can provide a view on country risk from our global insurance partners. And country risk is actually a very specific term, which is the uncertainty associated with investing in a particular country. And that'll take into account a number of factors: political, economic, exchange rate, and perhaps technological influences. And these insurers that we work with, they benchmark in this fashion because ultimately they offer trade credit insurance. But before you even consider a nation to invest in, we've got this kind of intel at hand for Centuro Global members. We'll be able to give a view on what catastrophic perils are in play in any country and a view on tendency to litigate. For example, flood in certain parts of Germany, wind in Puerto Rico, earthquake in certain parts of Mexico. Are material risks known in advance? And certain countries have a higher tendency to litigation than others. What comes to mind is the United States of America on that score. And we'll be able to give you a sense of what insurances are mandatory for doing business. At the outset, I can tell you that in general, auto and public liability insurance likely must be a local purchase. And depending on the country, other insurances may be mandatory locally. And then there are what insurance are normally purchased in your industry. And a UNIBA partner will be able to have a view on that in every nation. And then even better for competitive advantage, what insurances are generally required by your potential clients as you expand to that nation. So let's take a look at a case study. In this case, a global warehousing company is expanding to India. It's a North American freezer warehousing and logistics firm. Through a local JV partner, they've accessed insurance terms for physical plant and liability. Our in-depth due diligence included examining their customer contracts, and what they were specifically going after in India were global companies looking to warehouse in Mumbai. And through that contractual analysis, we were able to uncover the need for a form of insurance that's not available in the domestic Indian market, called warehouseman's legal liability. Now, execution followed, which was compliant with these global contracts, and therefore they were able to go after more international customers looking to sell to consumers in the Indian market. And truly, it's the advice piece that allowed them to create that competitive advantage. So let's look at straight up business insurance to win business. A UNIBA partner can provide all forms of business insurance and risk management advice around it. And I've listed here some forms of insurance that you might be familiar with, ranging from public liability and product liability insurance, facilities insurance, fleet insurance, crime insurance, which is sometimes called fidelity bonding or theft of money, construction insurances, cyber insurance, which is getting a lot of play if you Google that on the internet. Sometimes you'll find that called breach of privacy or theft of data, professional liability insurance, or errors and emissions insurance, which I referred to in a previous slide. I referred to trade credit insurance earlier, or product recall insurance, even intellectual property insurance. So not only will a UNIBA partner have expertise around all of these forms of insurances, they will also have loss control resources to manage both frequency of risks or numerous claims or severity of risks, like some of that catastrophic risk I referred to earlier. So here's another case study for you. An IT services provider expands to Toronto, Canada. And in this case, it was Belgian. Might not have been Belgian, might have been, this was Austrian. And working with a UNIBA partner, and in this case us, the client came to understand what insurances are required within contracts with Canada's financial institutions and government entities. And what privacy legislation do they need to comply with? And to what standard do they need to operate to apply for network security insurance, including coverage for regulatory fines? So let's go to that first bullet. In most of the financial institutions in Canada have very similar contractual requirements, and they will demand $10 million of commercial general liability, $10 million of technology errors and emissions, $10 million of third-party cyber liability insurance, $5 million of first-party cyber insurance, $5 million of crime insurance, that fidelity bonding I was talking about, including a third-party extension to cover theft from the financial institution itself. And what's critical to understand here is that we worked with that client because to some extent, these aspects can be negotiated depending on the kind of work being performed and the extent of access to the systems of their client. So now let's look at that second bullet around privacy legislation. For example, in Canada, we have both federal and provincial privacy regulations, and it's changing regularly. Now, I expect one day it will look a lot more like the EU's GDPR standards. For the moment, it's a hodgepodge, and it's worth talking to a UNIBA partner to understand what the compliance could look like as you greenfield in Canada or anywhere in the world. And the upside here is before bidding, these clients can be assured of compliance and have a handle on cost. And what that means is winning RFPs, winning business. I thought that we should, directors and officers insurance, I specifically didn't mention in the form of, in the list of insurances that a UNIBA partner can provide, because I felt that protecting the board deserved its separate examination. When looking at investing in a new country or expanding in a new country, a UNIBA partner can provide a view on personal director or board member risk in their nation, resources to educate potential directors on local governance and compliance issues. A UNIBA partner will have the ability to express that at a board level of understanding and a more detailed executive level of understanding of directors and officers insurance. And finally, insurance and execution. And the point being here is that these are the resources to attract great board members and give them the comfort to step up. And that's part of competitive advantage. Case study. So this was an Indian company looking to attract Belgian financing. And they were seeking financing through a Belgian private equity firm. And what it would require is our client to incorporate in Belgium as the parent to the Indian operating company, and therefore requiring local D&O insurance. Our Belgian UNIBA partner was able to offer our Indian UNIBA partner guidance as to D&O insurance limits typically purchased, an idea of cost, and timeline for execution, so that the financing could be considered and closed armed with local and executable intel. Competitive advantage. So protecting people. We've put this, I felt that we needed two parts to this. Protecting people in terms of staff is where we'll start. A UNIBA partner can provide an outline of how the healthcare system works in their nation. Is it private, public, hybrid medical insurance? And what employee benefits are considered to be the ticket to entry versus those that provide hiring advantage? And that being among medical, dental, drugs. And I will say, group pension plans could be part of that mix. Like in the United States, that'll be a 401k. A UNIBA partner will also be able to provide an outline of how workers' compensation works in their country. Is it private, public, hybrid? And in some countries, healthcare and workers' compensation is executed entirely through the government. In my country, it's provincially based. And a UNIBA partner can still direct the client to the appropriate resource, saving huge time and hassle. So finally, those parts that are private insurance and or hybrid insurance, finally get to providing the letter. Pardon me?
It's okay, it's sorted.
Okay, sorry, it was just I think
somebody else's conversation.
Jumping in. You carry on. Sorry about that.
Okay, so we're talking about protecting people, staff, and after providing material advice as to logistics and how things work, finally there's the actual execution and insurance brokerage. So let's look at a case study. An Italian luxury goods company was expanding to the United States. And as part of their recruitment program, externally and internally, this Italian firm used a recruiting consultant to understand the local minimum and recommended benefit packages to attract desired talent. Our UNIBA partner was able to price the options, refine the offered package, and lever self-insurance to contain corporate costs while achieving recruitment objectives. And the reason I think this is such a fun example is because buying insurance is not always the answer. And UNIBA has employee benefits experts internationally capable of analyzing and implementing self-insurance schemes, which can lead to competitive advantage. Finally, protecting people, part 2, I think we should pay some attention to the executives, because oftentimes that can be the first hire when you're greenfielding. UNIBA Partner can provide resources for personal residential insurance to support relocation, personal car insurance to support relocation. Now, in some countries, this happens through different channels like banks, but a UNIBA partner can guide the experience for the executive. A UNIBA partner can also provide corporate kidnap and ransom insurance for key executives, global travel medical insurance and extraction support, and specialized accident and disability insurance beyond the corporate insurance program. So let's do a fun case study. An Australian geologist was recruited to a Toronto-based publicly trading mining exploration firm, and that meant regular travel required to Nevada and Kazakhstan. UNIBA support included renter's insurance in Toronto until he could find a home to buy, and then home insurance, auto insurance, including interface with his previous Australian insurers for the letter of experience, accident insurance, travel medical insurance, and kidnap insurance for high-risk locations, which Kazakhstan is considered one, and foreign workers' compensation and foreign non-owned automobile liability, because this geologist, when he traveled, was driving cars everywhere. All of this through the UNIBA partners within Canada, the US, and Kazakhstan made it happen for this mining exploration company. So they were able to attract the best-in-class talent and treat them like gold. So I've given you 6 examples of how Centuro Global members can lever UNIBA partners for successful global expansion and scale. And this is just a taste of the value that we can bring to your clients. Thank you for your time. And I will turn it over to Suraj.
Thank you, Brooke. When you said you were going to be about 25 minutes, you were spot on. So well done on that. Thank you for being as accurate as that. And yeah, I like what I liked about this was just how clear and practical it was. And I think that it's hugely beneficial from there. But I think what's really cool, and I'm just going to try and see how I can unpin you there, stop the spotlight, is that it doesn't stop here. We're really privileged to have more UNIBA members that will be able to help us explain and explore this topic even more. And I'm going to introduce some of them right now, and we're going to try and get them all on and chat a little bit further about this. I'm going to start off with the big boss of UNIBA, Marine Hofmeyer, and she's based in Belgium. Marine, thanks for being here. And Marine is going to kind of host the next section where she'll get the conversation going. So thank you, Marine.
Thank you very much, Suraj, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here. It's great to see somebody summarize an activity that we're so incredibly familiar with in ways in which we have probably not often expressed it. So I hope that whether your background is tax or legal or recruitment or immigration, that you saw the attachment points that Brooke was trying to make. Brooke is really here also to take your questions. But Suraj, perhaps you would like to continue first.
Yes, I'll just introduce the other 2 gentlemen, and then we'll open it up to questions, which Marine will kind of manage from there. Also, from UNIBA, one of the UNIBA partners in the UK is the head of international at Sutton Winson, and that's Joe Perry. Thank you, Joe, for being here. Joe is going to be taking us there. And then last but not least, the CEO of ICOS in Mexico is Jean Carlos Dune. thank you for being here, Jean Carlos, and I'm glad that you arrived safely at your office, because a few minutes ago in the prep meeting you were driving, which was counter to but it's all good. I'm glad you're safely where you're meant to be. So thank you. I'll hand over to Marine, and yeah, please go ahead and discuss the topic a bit further. If anyone have questions, please feel free to either raise your hand or put the question in the chat. But over to you, Marine.
Thank you very much, Suraj. And I can easily imagine that if you are not in insurance, that 6 case studies involving insurance seem like a lot of a foreign topic. While you let that sink in, I think there's one topic that concerns a fairly substantial number of the people in the room here. If you are European, you are obviously, and your clients, if they are European, are obviously concerned in some shape, form, or manner by Brexit. And we're very fortunate to have Joe Perry from Sutton Winson in the UK with us. Joe, would you like to briefly comment on the relevance of Brexit in the insurance and legal context?
I can try and do that as quickly and succinctly as possible on a subject like Brexit. But yes, for those of you that don't know, and until the UK left the EU, we were part of the single market that everyone in the EU enjoys, which meant we were able to operate across Europe under the freedom of services arrangement, meaning in the UK we could arrange insurance cover for our clients in the UK operating anywhere in the EU, and likewise our partners in the EU could cover their clients with subsidiaries or operations in the UK. But since Brexit, and there are a few anomalies to it, but in the main that has now changed. And whilst the UK does still allow European insurance brokers and companies to place insurance in the UK, I think we probably collectively agree it's best practice to establish local cover here now, and likewise in Europe, where we may have covered our UK clients' German subsidiary from the UK, we'd now be engaging with our German partner to arrange local cover there. So that's what's changed ultimately. We can no longer operate the way we did. We had to be very proactive in trying to determine how insurance companies were going to manage the whole situation, which was a challenge. So because I don't think anyone will mind me saying a lot of them didn't really seem to know how they were going to manage it until it arrived. So does that answer your question, Marine?
Yes, thank you, Joe. And what Joe is saying, really, the underlying issue is from where can you and your client potentially even purchase insurance? And that, again, is you would think that would be a clear-cut topic. In many instances, actually, it isn't as clear-cut as that. And that, too, is one of the many questions that we get involved in. Brexit has placed this problem into the heart of Europe, where we didn't used to have an issue with that. And we now do. If you are not located in the UK, you now need a local contact in the UK in order to purchase insurance there. And vice versa. Mexico, I think, is another very interesting example in the sense that it's not that easy necessarily to determine where you can buy coverage. If you are located in Spain, then it seems like a natural that your Spanish insurer will be able to take care of this for you easily. If you happen to have a broker, your broker should make that a very smooth transaction. Juan Carlos, is that necessarily the case?
Hello, Marine, and hello, everyone. I'm Juan Carlos Dune from ACOS in Mexico, and that's a very good question, Marine, and not necessarily would happen that way. Definitely, as Brooke explained previously, every country has its different compulsory insurance requirements, and in Mexico is not the exception. We have some liability and mandatory requirements, and not only insurers are actually global players. So you may have in Spain a local carrier, or your insurance policies for the business with a specific carrier that might be domestic but might not have relationship with another carrier in Mexico in this case. So and your agent or broker in your own country, in Spain, might not have either a relationship with other brokers to help service this client that is starting operations from Spain into Mexico. So that's where a UNIBA partner can help, and we can screen the requirements of this new company coming into Mexico. And as Bruce said, we can start looking into, of course, the executives, expats moving into Mexico, covering them as initially an individual, and then the startup of the group of executives and employees in the company, along with the offices and certain requirements that by contract, when you lease space, you will require, of course, tenants liability for any damages that you may cause to the premises that you're renting. So, and after that, of course, the operation in terms of property, liability, and now the most important risk that nobody sees or seems to see deeply is the cyber insurance for all those cyber attacks that we are all experiencing at the moment. So yes, then sometimes actually your programs locally in your home country, like Spain in this case, then you can improve actually your coverage from your own country with the experience that you had in the country that you are going into in your new venture, in this case Mexico. So perhaps Mexico with an insurance carrier that is international and a UNIBA partner that is also international, you can bring a better program to your home office too, and you can start a global program from there.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. And I think what you've just said addresses Ben's question. What does the process look like when you're helping a client that probably, hopefully, already has insurance in their home country and is expanding to a new country? I think for us, exactly the way it is for you, a lot would depend on the particular situation and what that client relationship is, what that local headquarter, what the headquarter client really wants. But Brooke, would you like to address that?
Yeah, I think that when these situations arise, it starts with a phone call. And I actually know almost every member I have met in person. Now, of course, we've attracted some new members to UNIBA since COVID. So there are some I've only met via this Zoom mechanism. But in starting with a phone call to people that I know, right away, the level of advice that I'm getting and that your client's getting is just at a level that's up here and truly practical. And then eventually it will drill down to the details of, can we expand a program from Spain to Mexico? Do we have to do something separate in Mexico? Do we have to have some sort of combination? But that initial phone call is between people that know each other, and that step up for each other regularly, so that it really makes the experience something that is expertise, intel, and, as I said, competitive advantage.
Yep. Ben, I hope that, thank you, Brooke. Ben, I hope that answers your question. Brooke, while you're talking about that initial phase, I wanted to go back to your presentation where you explain a lot of the things that can happen proactively. And they're super important because as we all know, as you know, in your area of expertise, if you get the conceptual solution right in the beginning, it saves an awful lot of headache in the end. But things do happen, and eventually claims do arise. Brooke, would you like to speak to how that works in an international setting? Well,
again, Marianne, and excellent. I should have added this as number 7. The actual process of a claim is where our value tends to really be measured. And having people that you know with feet on the ground in the locations in which you operate make a tremendous difference. And I can speak to this because relatively recently, that case study I presented about the freezer warehouse firm expanding to India, there have been a couple of material claims, and given the weather, I knew one of them was definitely probably going to happen. And our UNIBA partner was just I'm literally texting and getting feedback as to what's going on. He's managing the relationship locally through the claim, and I'm managing expectations at head office, so that at the end of the day, we were able to shine. And it's only through that feet on the ground with people that you trust that you can have that kind of claims outcome. Truly, I've experienced it. And what we can do, depending on the Centuro Global member, depending on their relationship with the client, may want to be part of the loop of communication. And because we're independently operated, we can change our procedures to be able to adapt to those kinds of expectations, which is the entrepreneurial spirit, the independent spirit, yet a high level of expertise and trust.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. And I think that's what you expect from each other also. There's so many attachment points. In some instances, we'll be really close to the HR issues when we're talking about protecting people. Other instances will really be very much discussing tax implications. But Ben has added another question, which, Joe, I think we find very relevant in our daily work also. The key questions that come up and again and again. Would you like to address that, Joe?
Yeah, of course. So I think the main question for me is because in this context, you know, our fellow members on here will often be dealing with perhaps startup or growing, scaling businesses, you know, expanding overseas, and often we see that companies around the world have started off with an arrangement that suited them at the beginning for maybe a couple of years, maybe 3 years, but they quickly outgrow that, and that quickly becomes outdated, both from a cover perspective, but also a service and capability perspective of their broker, of the advice that they receive from that broker, and of the reach of that broker. So I think looking at this, how this is a competitive advantage is, of all the things we've talked about, I think hopefully it's clear that, you know, we have very close people we can actually pick up the phone to and get immediate advice and assistance. So in answer to that question, I would say, you know, does the current insurance broker have global capabilities or global knowledge and capabilities? One thing that we all have access to through our membership of UNIBA is a resource called AXCO, which is a a global leading library of knowledge of insurance around the world. So we all have that to our fingertips at any moment in time. So yeah, I'd focus on perhaps the capability side of things, and particularly in certain countries around the world, that's hugely important. You know, we mentioned some of them earlier, but you know, for UK companies, for example, you know, expanding into the US or China perhaps, you know, can have its challenges, certainly from an insurance perspective. So
yeah, thank you, Joe. I think Ben, I think your question is particularly astute because it highlights the trickiness of thinking we know what there is to know. And we too, if we're not careful, we're careful to not let ourselves fall into that trap ourselves, because many of us work in fairly sophisticated legal and regulatory environments. We're very attuned to the logic of that environment. And then we have a client going to the US, for example. The temptation to think it can't be that different, surely, and the overall logic and outline surely is going to be similar. That temptation is huge, and that's I think that the key question that we always need to ask ourselves, okay, what do you really want to do? What's your objective when you go overseas? Go back to Brooke's case studies. Are you acquiring something? Are you setting up? Who are you talking to for insurance advice, and what are their overseas competencies? Because without that strong local knowledge, there is, believe me, no way it's going to be right. And you don't need just that local knowledge. You also need somebody who's actually willing to engage with your client's project overseas, because beware of the same logic on the other side. Beware of the person on the other side who thinks, oh, well, yes, they're coming from Germany, but surely they speak English and they will understand if I'm telling them this, that this is what I mean. Well, no, they won't, in fact, because they're coming from very different environments. So I think the biggest single thing that we can say is be sure you're talking to people for whom international is what they do. You know that from your own experience within Central Global, how important that sensitivity to our clients' needs is, and how important that sensitivity to the differences in environment and what that means for our interpretation of the local needs are. So Ben, thank you for for a question that we feel really strongly about. Juan Carlos, is there something you wanted to add to this?
Yes, sure. And it's a message for the rest of the members, these Central Global members that are not UNIBA partners also, is that this group of brokers, this UNIBA unity of brokers around the world, is you have to be sure that all of the partners are influential and with a great reputation in their own countries, and definitely well known by the industry, and strong locally and stronger globally.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. I see we have a few UNIBA partners in the call who aren't part of this original panel. If one of you would like to comment, it'd be great to hear any additional thoughts from you. Post your comment in the chat if you like, or raise your hand. Suraj or I will see that. So,
and even I have an additional comment.
Yes.
I think, right? Part of the sensitivity when you're working internationally is that you've got to have people who are sophisticated enough to, and teams behind them sophisticated enough to be able to interface with entrepreneurial companies or multinationals that have a CFO per nation, or it could be not only are you interfacing corporately, but we are also interfacing personally, so that if we're dealing with someone who is the top level recruit for a German business to get their expansion off the ground in New York, that person needs to be handled with kid gloves. We are actually the face of and part of the relocation and part of the recruitment process, onboarding process. And we recognize that sensitive role that we play on the personal insurance front, Maureen. I think it's worth noting because I know that there are a number of Centura Global members who are working on immigration or relocation for these senior executives. And we have the sophistication to be able to speak to these people and sensitivity to be able to speak to these people at their level. I thought that was worth noting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So Raj, I think you have a reply to that.
It's not a reply. It's more of another question. And I know you mentioned it when you spoke about assuming that the same applies. It's one of the major problems. What do you think some of the biggest mistakes are that companies scaling make, besides that assuming that the same thing applies? What do you think some of the biggest mistakes around this risk management that they make? I mean, I'm sure you have lots of experience when it comes to that. And I'm always open for a few horror stories if you have some. So it always makes for some entertainment. So no, but I mean, are there some real things that you?
Yeah. When we get someone calling us saying, okay, we've come to Canada and we've got our first new client, and the client is huge, it's a multinational, and they think that because they've done business with this client in a different country, no problem. When in fact the insurance specifications are completely different. They've already signed the like this has happened more often than not, and it's very difficult to manage because they've signed a contract with specifications that they can't even comply with. And so that there ends up being just massive tension trying to dance around it until we can get something in place that remotely mirrors it, right? And that doesn't even get into the claim that's not covered issue. That's just purely a compliance issue at the very front end. There's just one example for the group.
Great. Anything else from your side on that particular question, Maureen? I don't know if but that's a great example. Yeah.
I think from what I see, a lot of frustration can arise out of believing that price is a good indicator of anything. And especially internationally, it gets really complicated because you may see that property premiums, what you pay for fire insurance, for example, is going to be very low, and then liability will look quite low as well. And therefore you think, okay, now moving over to the next country, it should be low like that as well. It's not the way it works. Forget price. Look at what you need first, and then let's see how competitive that price is. But price as such is not an indicator of anything in risk management and insurance. It's just a number. It's no guarantee of anything, and it doesn't say anything about the future. And just as the fact that you have never had a problem with cyber before, it doesn't mean that at the moment you're not already having a problem with cyber. It's human perception, as we all know, is conditioned by a number of things that aren't necessarily helpful to our thinking about risk, which is what makes risk such an interesting topic to think about, of course. Joe, any observations on that from you?
Okay. Can I quickly jump in there as well, Joe? Just before you do that, there was a question from Gabrielle in RPS Legal. What are the benefits that UNIBA Partners can provide in the context of a law firm specifically? from a law firm perspective. And again, that can, I just wanted to, it was in the chat. I just wanted to get that one answered as well. Yeah.
Can I, if it's possible to clarify, is that working with a law firm and their clients, or arranging insurance for a law firm? Because
it wasn't, it didn't specify, Joe, but so maybe you can address both, or just touch on it very briefly on both those contexts.
Yeah, of course. So working with a law firm, arranging cover for their clients, that's something we do all of the time. You know, there is a lot of synergy with insurance and legal work. As all of the lawyers on this call will know, there are mandatory and legal requirements in every country. So the benefits of working with UNIBA are that we make sure at the very minimum their clients are compliant with local legislation, local tax requirements. You know, there's going to be no nasty surprises, and everything will be done properly. Arranging cover for law firms is slightly different in that certainly in the UK, the insurance market for law firms is quite limited. It's very competitive. But it's focused around obviously their professional negligence and their errors and omissions, what we call professional indemnity in the UK. So that's often the main cover that we talk to law firms about, and certainly something that we can arrange.
And we in the network, one of our partners is the main player globally for law firms, professional liability, actually, which is Paragon, right, out of the UK.
Yep. Yes, you're right, Juan Carlos. That's one of their very strong areas of expertise, in addition to architects, engineers, but also other areas which you as a law firm may be involved in on behalf of your clients, like clinical trials and biomed in general, things like that. So there's a lot of specialty know-how within UNIBA Partners, which you will find useful for your clients. Other big areas at the moment actually are clean energy and the transition to clean energy. Another important one is media, of course, the liability that goes with that, but also the production side of it. Any kind of energy, actually, even old, non-green energy, and the risks of how long will we still be able to find financing and find insurance for that. Yeah, great question. I think obviously insurance and law, as insurance and employment and tax are very intimately linked.
Thank you, Maureen. I'm going to start wrapping up there. I think this has been absolutely fascinating on what is a topic that I don't understand well enough today. I think I got a far better kind of understanding of all the value that comes with it, because it really is about that value. I know that today was aimed at giving UNIBA an opportunity to share the knowledge with the Centura Global members, and I thank you. All of our guest speakers, starting off with Brooke, thank you so much for a great talk right up front. Maureen, for handling that section that we had there. Jean Carlos, thank you so much for your bit, and Joe. I do want to just offer Ben just a quick opportunity. Ben, I know you were in the background and you were there. Do you want to have just a few words from your side as well when it comes to just wrapping up and feedback from your side, Ben? And then just, by the way, if you can, again, I still see people dropping their details in the chat. Please do. The more we get to know each other, the better it is when it comes to these things.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Suraj, and thank you for everybody that was speaking today. As Suraj mentioned, always great to really get into how this can support. I think the area covering employment and offering competitive advantage and meeting the requirements there is a very big piece. I think we're going to a remote work expo in a couple of weeks, and I can see the synergies already and how we have to have conversations. And I think the goal for Censura Global is really just to solve the challenges any company looking at global expansion has, and this is obviously an area. So it's that was also where my questions are going. How can we, as the non-experts, express this to our clients to go, well, make sure you have a chat with our insurance providers at UNIBA and so forth. And I think one of the ways we can do that as well is also for the Censura members to make sure we feel like we've got this resource, and I think that was a big part of today as well. So for all of the Censura members in the call today, I mentioned to Gabrielle, who's based in the Netherlands there, that asked the question on the law firm. I'm sure the UNIBA member in Netherlands will be happy to have a chat with you as well. And knowing the UNIBA team, I'm sure anybody will be. So if you've got any questions in your country or another country, please always feel free to connect with us and we can connect you with UNIBA. A number of the UNIBA members are also directly joining the Censura team. So you'll find Brooke, you'll find Juan Carlos and Joe on the Censura platform. You can reach out, connect with them. They'll be attending events and so forth. So we're really excited to continue this sort of merging and the overlap, because there is a big overlap and a large number of benefits there that can go both ways as well. So yeah, we're excited and really appreciate you guys being able to support and share a bit more of how that benefit can be used by the Censura members.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Great comments in there, great introductions from everyone, and I think it was really beneficial. Thank you for your time. I hope your evening, afternoon, good morning continues as you go along. And thanks to the UNIBA team. This has been amazing. Thanks, everyone. Keep in contact. And if you can always reach out either to Marine or to myself if you want to be connected to anyone from both sides. Let it either contact either Marine or myself, and we connect you with anyone around the world, so to speak. Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take good
Take care.
care.